As a woman, what would you have done in this situation? My partner, M, and iodine monofluoride were watching a movie and an actress's face was being filmed at this particular scene. Her facial expression was shown as if she's moaning while she's having sex even though she wasn't having sex. She was basically making that face to the amount of money she was going to receive. My partner has already watched this movie before and right before this scene comes up, he slides my hand inside his pants to signal me to give him a hand job. As soon as the scene came up, my body froze and I decided not to move my hand. After a few minutes, I asked him to never use my hand or my body while watching another girl on screen or in real life to get off too. My body froze instead of reacting because I felt like an object he uses to fantasize about other women right in front of me. He did apologize but then played it off as if he never watched that movie. That he just happened to slide my hand down there even though he was forecasting what's the next scene about. As a woman, what would you have done? Edit, for those asking me if this was discussed prior to him disrespecting me, I would say yes. Because months ago he asked me if I would be comfortable watching porn with him? I told him I'm not. He knows I'm not comfortable with him ogling at other girls when I'm with him. He knows I wouldn't be comfortable with disrespectful behaviors similar to these. You did the right thing, that's super gross. That gross and so disrespectful to you. A decent man doesn't treat his partner like that. Dump his ass. Wow. Just gross. If he'd asked you beforehand, giving you the option to opt out beforehand, I don't think it would have been terrible. But the premeditated sneakiness of it is creepy and makes it clear he doesn't fully grasp the concept of consent. I'd consider getting out now. Blocked and delete. Fuck that. What a douchebag. Is him sliding his hands into your pants for a hand job a typical thing? I find that really gross. When my husband wants to start it up with me, he starts by pleasuring me. Not sticking my hand in his pants. I would find that to be a complete turn-off. The way you've written this sounds like he was just using your hand like a sexy toy rather than engaging with you in a sexy way. I'd be concerned not only because of the scene from the movie but probably more so because he feels entitled to sex acts whenever he pleases. Does he think if he fancies a blowjob he can just shove your head down? How far does this entitlement go? Does he see it as your duty and that's why he can just demand without even bothering to say the words? Or does he somehow think that you are happy and eager to be used as his sex toy for whenever the movies get raunchy and that's why he can just take as he pleases? I'd have a very serious conversation about this entitlement and what sex means to both of you. If this is something he finds hot he needs to communicate that. If it's an unspoken entitlement you need to end that way of thinking fast. Lol, yeah, that was trashy. I am not a woman but I just want to say, decent guys don't think what he did was okay either. It was demeaning. You did the right thing. I would never want to date a guy like that personally. That would be a major deal breaker for me. So he just did this while watching a movie with you without any prior discussion? Why would he premeditate this scenario without telling you, especially in a way where he's aroused by another woman? I personally would not stay with him, especially in the context you described. Good job on setting boundaries. Please listen to your gut and don't do anything you don't want to. I'd wash my hands and leave. This made me uncomfortable just reading it. I can't imagine what it must have felt like living through it. I would have reacted very similarly to you. This incident feels like a red flag to me. I'm a guy, but if my girlfriend did that to me I'd be absolutely shocked. What he did is not okay. Let him know just how you feel. Tell him you feel like a sex object and that it makes you feel awful. Tell him it's not okay. If he's a good guy, he will understand and treat you better. But yeah, that is seriously gross. You deserve better. It is not your responsibility to raise any boy into manhood. That was a totally immature move on his part. Time to move on. I'm a woman. Well, if my partner slid my hands down his penis to give him a handjob and I was not interested in doing so, then I would tell him, no, and took my hand out of his pants. Depends on the person. I probably wouldn't mind it because I'd be turned on too. What I wouldn't like is that my partner is taking my hand and putting it in his pants. If you want to get some action, touch me first to get me in the mood. Don't force me to touch you when we're innocently watching a movie. As you were not consenting, next time tell him you will turn it off, kick him out or you will leave. He can jerk off to other girls on his own time. Might be the only reason he wanted to watch it again with you. Very pathetic and gross. I've never been more confused at the comments in this thread. He moved her arm to his crotch during a movie. This wasn't a stranger, clearly someone you're comfortable with and have been seeing for months. He didn't pressure up, just made a move and she rejected. What's up with the nuclear level comments? How old are you? Your response to him doing that seems a little overdramatic. If I wasn't into I would have done what you did. You did what was right for you and your comfort. Don't bend to someone else's needs, stay true to you. That would hurt me so bad, and make me feel absolutely gross. You're a bigger person than I, 'cause I would have flipped out and left. Probably would have laughed. Like what, you just grab my hand and shove it there? How romantic. Just tell him no and move on. Having skimmed through your responses to other comments here, above all else, you and the guy you call your partner are clearly not sexually compatible. I'd encourage you to spend some time thinking about why you are staying with someone whose sexual needs, interests disgust you so much, or who you feel disrespected by. You might both be happier with different partners. It's perfectly understandable for you not to be comfortable with doing that. Some couples have sex with porn on, or recreate scenes, etc. In fact, couples do all kinds of things others would never dream of or find comfortable. It's all about communication and respecting each other's boundaries. He should have known that's not your cup of tea when you ruled out porn during sex, as it's kinda the same thing. At least he apologized later. Gross. But you made your boundaries clear. Move on unless it happens again. This is getting out of hand. My partner wanted a handjob, OMG. What should I do? Leave him? How dare he want a handjob from his partner? Y'all need to stop. You set your boundary and he apologized for it. If you feel as if something's still amiss, you could make him promise to never do that again because of how uncomfortable it made you, and if he cares about you he'll try to make amends and you can feel closure. You probably should break up. You both have very different values. You also don't seem to have any emotional attachment to him at all. I don't really understand why you are with him in the first place. Find a guy whose values match yours, you have some connection with on an emotional level, and can love. Neither of you should be in a sour relationship, so just let it go. What's the movie? For context so I can understand better. I don't understand why he said he didn't watch it before, seems like it's part of his spank bank. You discussed it with him before. He was pushing your boundaries, something fierce. Then he lied about it. I'd dump him. You've discussed this before in regards to watching porn though. I'm not defending him but just saying maybe he didn't think of the movie as being on the same level as that. All I say. Absolutely gross. To be honest, if my boyfriend would do that, I'd just go with it. I don't really feel threatened by him getting aroused by watching other women, as long as doesn't act on it except with me. But the most important thing is communication. I don't think he meant it all that disrespectful, I just think he hasn't really grasped how deeply it affects you. I'd just sit him down and really explain what he can and cannot do. Sorry, but I'd never date a guy who treats me like that. I know it's easier said than done, but dump him and find a real man who respects you, not a man-child. That's awful. I think he was very disrespectful, especially considering that you've talked about this before. I think you should reconsider your relationship with him. Yikes. You've told him you're not comfortable and he still did that. The only time he should make you feel like that is if it turns you on to do those things. I would have frozen just like you, tell him, and given him a little cold shoulder, to be honest. My boyfriend and I are kinky, but that's just disrespectful if you're not okay with it. That's absolutely disgusting. If my boyfriend did something like that, you could bet your ass I'd be out of there ASAP. I'm so thankful to have a boyfriend who cares about me and respects my boundaries. Does he typically lie and try to invalidate you when you call out disrespectful boundary pushing? If so, that's gaslighting, and a massive red flag. That's beyond disrespectful and so fucking gross. I'd 100% leave someone if they wanted me to help them get off to someone else. I don't like his dismissiveness. It cancels out the apology. Does he have a habit of not taking responsibility for his actions? I had a boyfriend similar to that. That's the key, don't settle for less. Drop that pause. Meh. We all get a little turned on with things on TV or movies. It doesn't mean you're fantasizing over that person, just that it's turned you on a bit and then you wanna get busy with your other half. After watching the Duke in Bridgerton get sexy time, I don't fancy him at all, not one bit. Doesn't mean I don't wanna get all sexy time with my man. I would be so pissed. He can do that on his own, when I'm not there, but to use me and any part of my body when he's turned on by someone else, I wouldn't bear the disrespect and would be too grossed out by the guy to be with him, to be honest. I have the feeling you won't get along. Better end it as long as you still can. It doesn't matter what I do. What matters is that you previously discussed this with your boyfriend and said you weren't comfortable with it, and yet he pushed past that boundary. I will say, when I was younger, I was offended at the idea of a guy needing to use porn to get aroused. But I grew out of that and saw that it wasn't a slight towards me. But porn doesn't turn me on, in fact it generally grosses me out. If my boyfriend wants to watch it before we get started, so be it. But for the most part he just looks at pictures me dressed up throughout the day to get his head in the game. Personally, I would have said that it isn't that big of a deal, if you hadn't said beforehand that you were not interested in that sort of thing. That's awful, he was way out of line.